Want to speak real Cantonese from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at CantoneseClass101.com.
Hi, welcome to Introduction to Cantonese. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Junho. In this series, you'll learn everything you need to know to get started learning Cantonese.
That's right, and we're here to help guide you through your journey. In this lesson, you'll learn the reasons why you should learn Cantonese and how to get started.
Let's begin with the most obvious question. Why learn Cantonese?
There are countless reasons, but perhaps the biggest one of all is that it could actually change your life. Learning a new language unlocks new pathways that used to be off limits to you. There are certain things that you simply cannot do without having the technical or cultural skills that come from learning a new language.
Like working or living in another country.
Knowing Cantonese provides you with greater job opportunities. You have the freedom to move to Hong Kong or Macau. You'll be able to earn a living, or even better yet, build a career from it, instead of just being stuck in one place. Language allows you to visit or live in places that you may never have even considered going. Knowing another language simply gives you more options to choose from.
And learning a new language also helps you to be more open-minded and see the world from a new perspective.
Language and culture go hand in hand. The world is a big place. By broadening your understanding of other cultures, it allows you to be more empathetic and understanding of the many different ways that people live their lives. With language, you're able to see and experience more, which helps you grow as a person.
Learning a new language also improves your memory.
Several studies have consistently shown that those who study another language have improved memory as opposed to those who didn't learn another language. Learning another language also keeps your brain healthy by significantly delaying the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. The difference can be as much as 4 to 5 more years of quality life.
And those are just some of the reasons you should learn another language. The list just goes on and on.
Now you know the benefits of studying another language, but why should you learn Cantonese in particular?
Have you ever heard of Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Chow Yun-fat? Well, they all came from Hong Kong.
Cantonese pop culture is huge. Many of the movies, dramas, and songs that are loved by people from all over the world were created in Hong Kong. Not everything gets translated either. So unless you know Cantonese, you're missing out on a lot of the amazing things that Cantonese pop culture has to offer.
And what about the fact that Hong Kong is one of the world's leading international financial centers?
Hong Kong is one of the world's most significant financial centers. It has the highest Financial Development Index score, and it was ranked as the world's most competitive economy, as well as the freest market economy in the world. It also ranks within the top 10 in GDP per capita. Knowing Cantonese opens up many business opportunities. And knowledge of the language, of Cantonese culture, work ethic, and business etiquette can go a very long way in the world of business. Oftentimes, it could even make or break an important business deal. Knowing Cantonese, then, will put you ahead of the pack.
Hong Kong has also been in the top spot of the world's most visited city for 6 consecutive years.
Cantonese, the main dialect used in Hong Kong, is spoken by over 60 million people around the world. So if you're planning on making a few friends in Hong Kong, being able to speak at least some Cantonese will go a long way.
So clearly, there are many reasons why you should learn Cantonese.
Okay then, we've talked about why you should start learning a language and why you should start learning Cantonese, but how should they get started, Junho?
Well, it's as simple as learning your first word in Cantonese and building up from there.
The good news, though, is that you already know some Cantonese.
Dim sum, feng shui, kung fu, lychee, oolong, wonton.
These are words that have made their way into English, but the reverse is also true. Many English words have made their way into Cantonese as the result of British rule between 1841 and 1997.
Such as 巴士, 沙律, 三文魚, 士多.
This means that you already know some words that exist in Cantonese.
Let's teach you something that you might not know, but which is very useful. 唔該. It means thank you in Cantonese.
That's a useful phrase. Can you explain what these characters are, though?
Sure. That's actually the Chinese writing system, and it's not as hard as it looks. Cantonese doesn't use alphabetical letters in its writing system like English does. Instead, we use a set of characters called Hanzi. You can think of each character as a syllable. 唔該.
You'll learn the Cantonese writing system eventually, but for now, let's put up some romanization to help you get started.
And the romanization system we use is called Yuping. It allows you to read Cantonese before you become familiar with Chinese characters. 唔該.
Now you try.
唔該，
Your turn again.
唔該.
Well done. Now you know how to say thank you in Cantonese. We've covered a lot of things already, so why don't we wrap up the first lesson and recap on what we've learned? In this lesson, you learned that studying another language has many benefits, such as providing new job and business opportunities. Hong Kong has a colorful history with many things for you to see and learn. And thank you in Cantonese is...
唔該,
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Cantonese pronunciation. Pronunciation refers to the manner in which a word is spoken, so don't focus on reading what's on screen. Instead, focus on listening and repeating. Let's start by pointing out that Cantonese doesn't use an alphabetical writing system like English does. Instead, it uses characters that are comprised of parts that depict physical objects or abstract ideas. Literacy in Cantonese requires the memorization of thousands of components and characters. This can be quite daunting for new learners, but don't worry, you don't have to know the writing system right away. We can start learning Cantonese with the romanization system built for learners. This is called...
粵拼. 粵拼 is the transcription of Cantonese using Roman letters. It makes learning Cantonese much easier, particularly for English speakers. As you begin to learn more characters and improve in Cantonese, you eventually rely less and less on romanization. But for now, it's a good place to start.
That's right. There are 22 consonant sounds and 7 vowel sounds in Cantonese. You can form every single word in Cantonese using these sounds.
We've made an Ultimate Cantonese Pronunciation Guide video series for you guys. This series explains the consonant and vowel sounds in detail. We will link to this at the end of this Introduction to Pronunciation lesson.
But before you do that, we'll tell you just how easy Cantonese can be. Now for a quick history lesson. Do you know how long Hong Kong has been a British colony?
That's a trick question. Hong Kong's territory was actually acquired from 3 separate treaties, first in 1842, then 1860, and lastly in 1898. So most people would say 99 years. This is the time frame during which the UK had control of what is now the Hong Kong region.
Although the sovereignty of Hong Kong was returned to the People's Republic of China by the United Kingdom in 1997, English remains one of the official languages of Hong Kong. They're mostly terms for items that were imported or cultures that started in the Western societies. Jinho, can you name a few for us?
Of course. Let's see if you can guess what they are before we give you the English translation. 巴士, 沙律, 士多, 車厘子, 爵士, sofa.
Now here are the answers. Tell us how many you guessed right.
巴士, bus, 沙律, salad, 士多, store, 車厘子, cherry, 爵士, jazz, sofa, sofa.
It's a nice surprise to find out that for some terms, Cantonese-speaking people can communicate together with English-speaking people, even without knowing the other language.
Exactly. So if you are an English speaker, you already know something like 10% of the Cantonese language.
Okay, now in this section, we're going to talk about what most learners find the most difficult, the Cantonese tones.
Unless you already know another tonal language like Vietnamese or Thai, the Cantonese tones can seem totally bizarre to you. In Cantonese, pitch accent is super important.
That's right. A word's meaning could be different depending on the tone that's pronounced. You definitely don't want to mix up mother and horse, for instance.
Yes, that would be a funny mistake. In Cantonese, mother is ma and horse is ma. Imagine someone introducing his mother to you by saying, "This is my horse."
So you can see how incredibly important it is to learn all the tones in Cantonese.
But don't worry, there are only 6 tones.
Can you demonstrate all of them for our learners?
Of course. C, 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 C.
Can you distinguish the different tones? Jinho, can you please say them again and a bit slower this time?
C, 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 C.
Okay, let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned about the Cantonese romanization system. And we learned that Cantonese words can sound very similar to their English equivalent due to the Western influence while under British rule. Lastly, we learned a bit about the 6 Cantonese tones. In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Cantonese grammar. Word order refers to the order in which words are structured to form a sentence. Consider the English sentence, I eat an apple. But first, let's remove the article an here for simplicity. We're left with just I eat apple. The basic word order for English is subject, verb, object, or SVO for short. If we break down the English sentence, I eat apple, we can see that the subject I is presented first. This is followed by the verb eat, and then finally the object apple is positioned last. This is the basic word order for sentences in English.
Now, let's compare the same sentence, I eat an apple, in Cantonese. 我食蘋果. Like before, let's remove the particles to keep it simple. So we are just left with the words. If we break down the Cantonese sentence, we get the subject 我, meaning I, then comes the verb 食, meaning eat, and finally, we have the object 蘋果, meaning apple. The word order for Cantonese is SVO, the same as English. Easy.
Right! And this is the basic word order for sentences in Cantonese.
Okay, let's move on to the next section.
To form basic sentences in Cantonese, keep that SVO word order in mind.
Right. For example, 我睇戲.
I watch movie.
Let's break down the sentence. We start with the subject 我, meaning I, then comes the verb 睇, meaning watch, and finally we have the object 戲, meaning movie.
Subject, verb, object. Easy! Jinho, can you give us one more example?
Sure, let's introduce a new subject, 你, meaning you. 你食蘋果.
You eat apple. Okay, I recognize the words from the previous sentence. So we simply change the subject that begins the sentence without changing any other parts. Is that right?
Yep. Unlike the Romance languages, there is no verb conjugation or gender in the Cantonese language. Yet, the word order is similar to English. So in fact, Cantonese is not that difficult. We start with the subject 你, meaning you, then the verb 食, meaning eat, and finally the object 蘋果, apple. That's how we form basic sentences in Cantonese.
That's really simple. What about negative sentences?
Forming negative sentences in Cantonese is even easier. Let's find out how.
Forming negative sentences in Cantonese is easy. In most cases, we just need to add the character for no or negation in front of the verb. Jinho, can you give us some examples?
Of course. Let's use the sentence I eat apple. 我食蘋果. For example, to make it negative, just add in front of the verb 食, eat. 我唔食蘋果.
I don't eat apple. Now let's make the sentence I watch movie negative.
Okay, to recap, I watch movie in Cantonese is 我睇戲. 睇 is a verb watch, so the negative version of this sentence would be 我唔睇戲.
I don't watch movie.
Yep. So what do you think? Pretty easy, right?
Let's talk now about how to form questions in Cantonese. We're going to start with an incredibly important and useful phrase. You're going to need this to ask what something is. So put the pronoun or name of the item first, and then add
係乜?
For example, if you want to ask, what is this? You'd say
呢個係乜? In which 呢個 means this thing.
And for what is that? It's
嗰個係乜? In which 嗰個 means that thing.
If someone was talking about, say, eggets,
雞蛋仔, yum.
If you don't know what that is, then you can ask, what are eggets?
雞蛋仔係乜?
So we start with the name of the item.
雞蛋仔 is a kind of Hong Kong street snack.
Then we add
係乜?
to form the question, what are eggets?
Very straightforward. Now, you try to form a question. Leave it in the comment section for us to read.
Yes, please. Okay, now let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned that Cantonese sentences are formed using a subject, verb, object, or SVO word order. To form negative sentences, we put the negation character in front of the verb. And lastly, you can create basic "what is something" questions in Cantonese by saying the pronoun or name of an item first, followed by...
係乜?
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Cantonese writing. Don't worry if you're not comfortable with the Chinese writing system yet. You can always rely on the romanization system. This lesson just gives you an overview of how the language is in its written form. One very interesting point about Cantonese is that it used to be defined as just a spoken language.
As it's one of the major Chinese dialects, it uses the same written standard Chinese as all other dialects. That's why some people look at some of our lessons and say, "Hey, it's the same as Mandarin." Yes, we use the same writing, but the pronunciation, use of terms, and sometimes the constructions are different in a very significant way.
As a colloquial language, Cantonese is non-standard and full of slang. There are also new Chinese characters that are unique to Cantonese.
Both the standard and slang-filled written texts are widely used in Hong Kong. Newspapers, officials, and documents use the standard form, while tabloids and forums use the colloquial form. Movie subtitles mostly use the standard form, but depending on the genre, sometimes you'll find subtitles in colloquial form.
So very often you'll hear actors, hosts, or anchors say things that aren't exactly what's shown in the subtitles. That's just the difference between colloquial and written forms in Cantonese. If you say everything the same way it's written in the standard Chinese, it would sound very strange, as if you're reading from a poem, so keep that in mind.
For example, we say 喺 meaning at, such as at school, 喺學校. But the same thing in writing is 在. So, at school in writing becomes 在學校.
For your reference, we have a section dedicated to this topic on the website, including a reference sheet of the common substitutes for words in written and colloquial writings. Just look for Written versus Spoken Cantonese under Cantonese Resource.
You can also check out our advanced video series, Video Culture Class, Hong Kong Holidays. In that series, we have subtitles in written form, while the host is speaking in colloquial form, just like what you see on TV shows and movies.
Chinese characters are not as difficult as they first appear. Once you're ready to learn, practice writing them again and again.
Yes, we all learn it that way. After knowing a certain number of Chinese characters, you'll become familiar with the building blocks that makes the characters. By putting them in different combinations, you get the characters you need.
We've prepared practice sheets for 100 of the most commonly used characters on the Learn Chinese Characters section, including basic info such as meaning, pronunciation, radical, stroke count, and a stroke order demonstration. So make sure to check it out.
You can learn character by character, or choose the ones that already look familiar to you. Moreover, in most of our audio lessons, we provide Hongji close-up PDF files. These show the Chinese characters introduced in the lesson, along with the practice sheets.
This is an excellent way to learn new words, as well as to practice writing Chinese characters.
So remember to make use of all the resources provided on the site, and you'll be able to master Cantonese in no time.
Speaking of Cantonese resources, we've recently added a section for learners who want to learn Chinese characters the way native speakers do.
That's right. When we were young, we learned Chinese characters by radicals. These are the building blocks of the Chinese characters. There are 214 Chinese radicals in total.
Each radical reflects some common semantic or phonetic characteristic. For example, most characters that have the grass radical are related to plants and herbs.
For instance, 花 flower, 草 grass, 茶 tea, and 梅 berry.
Or the characters that have the rain radical are related to rain or other weather conditions and phenomena.
Yes, 雨 rain, 雲 cloud, 雪 snow, and 雷 thunder.
By learning the radicals, you can easily associate a character with its meaning, or group them with relevant terms. This can help you memorize Chinese characters faster and more efficiently.
We also use radicals as the index for dictionaries. While English dictionaries are arranged in alphabetical order, Chinese dictionaries are arranged in radicals, starting from the least stroke count. For example, to search for the word 花 flower, first you find the grass radical in under the 3 strokes index. Then you count the extra strokes excluding the radical. In this case, there are 4 strokes, So under the grass plus 4-stroke section, you will be able to find the character fa, flower. From that, you can find a detailed explanation about the character and its meanings. You also find vocabulary starting with this character, or in some dictionaries, its translation in other languages.
Right! So definitely check out the free Cantonese resource on CantoneseClass101.com for more details. In this lesson, we covered the very basics of Cantonese writing. You learned about the writing systems used in Hong Kong, the Chinese characters, and the radicals. Don't forget to check out the Cantonese resource page for the free resources that we talked about in this lesson. In this lesson, we'll focus on teaching you the most useful Cantonese words and phrases for absolute beginners.
Make sure you're repeating the words out loud after me.
Are you ready? Let's get started. The best phrase to learn when studying a new language is one that expresses gratitude and appreciation. If you had to learn only a single phrase, this would be it.
We taught you this phrase in the first lesson of this series. Do you remember what it was? 唔該. It means thank you. 唔該.
Keep repeating after Jinho until you get it.
唔該.
Your turn.
唔該.
The first character is in a very low tone, fourth tone. It sounds a bit like when someone is thinking about a plan and they say, Notice that there is no vowel in this syllable, so you have to really stress the sound. And then the second character is in a high flat tone, first tone.
該. 該.
Altogether, it's...
唔該.
Okay, one last time.
唔該.
Remember that this thank you is used when someone helps you or provides a service. For example, when someone holds the door for you or when the cashier gives you some change. But when you receive a gift, we use another term for saying thank you.
Right, that would be 多謝. It's the thank you we use to thank someone for a gift.
Jinho, can you repeat that please?
多謝.
Your turn.
多謝.
The first character is in high flat tone, first tone. It means many.
多.
And the second character is a low flat tone, sixth tone. It means thanks.
謝.
Altogether, it's...
多謝.
Okay, one last time.
多謝.
The next phrase we'll teach you is perhaps the second most useful phrase of all. It's to apologize or to excuse yourself.
You're gonna love it because it's the same as the first thank you we learned. 唔該. Surprise, it also means excuse me.
You can use this phrase when you want to grab a waiter's attention or when you're hustling through the busy streets of Hong Kong.
It's a very useful word, so make sure you memorize it. 唔該.
Your turn.
唔該.
Imagine you're on the street and you want to stop someone to ask them for directions. What do you say?
唔該.
Okay, one last time.
唔該.
Now you can say the two thank yous and excuse me in Cantonese. Let's move on. Asking where something is an incredibly important and useful phrase to learn. You're going to need this when asking where the bathroom, metro station, or hotel is. To ask where something is, put the name of the place or location first, and then add...
喺邊?
For example, if you want to ask, where is the toilet?
廁所喺邊? Let's break down the sentence. First, it's the object 廁所, meaning toilet. Then comes the verb 喺, meaning is. And finally, we have the question word 邊, meaning where.
For the metro station, it'll be...
地鐵站喺邊?
You can ask where something is by simply adding...
喺邊?
Okay, now let's teach you some vocabulary so that you can use it in the sentence. Here are some of the most common words you'll need.
廁所.
Bathroom.
廁所. 廁所喺邊?
Next,
地鐵站.
metro station.
地鐵 means metro or subway, and 站 means station.
If you ask someone this question, they'll direct you to the closest metro station. If you'd like to ask where a specific train station is, for example, Hong Kong Station,
香港站. 香港站喺邊？
And that's where you can take the Airport Express. And the next word is
酒店
hotel.
酒店酒店喺邊？
For a specific hotel, just place the name before hotel.
酒店四季酒店 Four Seasons Hotel 四季酒店喺邊？ Where is the Four Seasons Hotel?
You can substitute almost anything and simply add
喺邊？
to ask where something is in Cantonese. In this final lesson, you learned how to say thank you, excuse me, I'm sorry, and to ask where something is in Cantonese. And in this series, we introduced you to the basics of Cantonese pronunciation, grammar, writing, and more. Let's conclude with some parting advice from Junho and listen to some of his tips on how to learn Cantonese from a native Cantonese perspective.
The best way to learn Cantonese, particularly if you want to improve your communication skills, is to watch and study contemporary Cantonese videos. That's because we often use expressions in daily conversation that aren't necessarily introduced in grammar textbooks. Watching contemporary videos, such as our videos here at CantoneseClass101.com, will ensure that you're learning real, applicable Cantonese in the fastest and most effective way. Also, being familiar with the Yuping system is super helpful, especially before you can recognize the Chinese characters. Make use of our Yuping chart, where you can listen to audio of each Cantonese sound. It's one of our learners' favorite tools. You can find it under Cantonese resources in the Cantonese alphabet section.
You've reached the end of this course, Introduction to Cantonese, but it's only the beginning of your journey to Cantonese fluency. Where do you go from here? Try our Absolute Beginner Cantonese for Everyday series, where we teach you beginner vocab and even more useful phrases. Or check out any of our other video series. We have many different categories for you to choose from. Good luck as you continue learning Cantonese, and we'll see you in another video. Bye!
Bye bye!